Hello everyone, this is Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Quill and Wandering Scribe. It's been a long time since I posted a recent episode, so today we'll be doing something a little bit different. Now, as many of you know, I recently read a book entitled Invicta, Fall of Rome by author Chris Hackett. I also interviewed Chris Hackett on my YouTube channel, as well as read the first few chapters of Invicta on Anchor. Now, normally, I read the first few chapters from the physical copy for you guys for my YouTube channel, but Chris was very kind enough to send me an advanced reader copy, digital version, for me to read for my Anchor podcast. And for this episode, I decided to do something a little bit different. Unlike my other initial book impressions, I'll be doing a full-on book review of Invicta, Fall of Rome. Now, let's start with the overall synopsis of Invicta, Fall of Rome. Invicta, Fall of Rome follows the main character, Orpheus, as the son of a Roman council member / high-ranking member of Roman society, or what was Roman society at this time. Around this period, it is 493 AD, where the Western Roman Empire is pretty much on the verge of collapse. The central government is pretty much caving in on itself. And there's only a few outposts left, and one of those outposts happened to be in Gaul, where Orpheus is living. And while Orpheus is living in Gaul, back in Rome, the senators find themselves at the whims of Odoacer, a Ostrogoth who is now taking command of Rome in hopes of establishing his own kingdom, which historically happens at this period in Western Roman history. Now, the whole story of Invicta, Fall of Rome follows Orpheus as he discovers more about his ancestry. As some of you who listened to the podcast or the interview I had with Chris, Invicta combines historical fiction with a little bit of fantasy. It examines a world where there were gods at one point in human history, but they no longer exist in the modern world. Why is that the case? Well, Invicta answers that by stating they were all killed off. No one believed in them anymore, thus they were losing their power. And thus when they lost their power, they were no longer dangerous. They were mortal, for lack of better words. And Orpheus now realizes that he is the last son of a powerful Roman god who has to reclaim his birthright, all the while escaping his captors, who are the Catholic Church at this time. Now, this was a period in Roman history where the Catholic Church is the predominant power. Roman paganism has pretty much been stamped out. In this book, the Catholic Church is now launching an inquisition against those who still follow the old ways. And hunting Orpheus is Archbishop Martel and his right-hand man, Volusian, who has a secret of his own. And along the way, Orpheus meets a wide range of characters, from a charismatic swindler, a former prostitute seeking her own life, and a bunch of other characters. We also introduced to Ephesus, a Roman general hoping to reclaim Rome. Theodoric, another historical character who plays a much bigger role later down the road, as well as glimpses of the Vandals of North Africa and the Eastern Empire, also known as Byzantium. And in that era, we meet a young Justin and a future Justinian. Now, if those names sound familiar to my history listeners, those are the two future emperors of the Eastern Roman Empire, or as they would later be known, Byzantium rulers. The story is very much a slow build. It definitely takes its time because the setting is a character in of itself. We see Gaul at this point in time in Roman history. We see what Italy and Rome looks like during this period. We get a glimpse into Byzantium, which is probably my favorite part of the book, where we get to see the Eastern Roman Empire, which I don't think a lot of books really cover that point. We rarely see books, at least in historical fiction, that talk about the Eastern Roman Empire. It's usually the Western Roman Empire. So I really like that this book really approaches that period of history. We also see Mount Olympus, or what's left of Mount Olympus after a bloody civil war. The characters are likable. The characters are fun, engaging. Orpheus, Volusian, Ephesus, Theodoric, Odoacer, and a bunch of other major characters as well. The one character, the prostitute, whose name escapes me unfortunately, is probably one of my favorite characters in the story. She's witty, she's comical, she takes nothing from nobody. She's awesome. And then you have what I call the handsome swindler. He initially started as like a cheat, a liar, but he becomes a very likable character. Well, he already is a likable character, but he becomes a very trustworthy and honorable character throughout the rest of the book. We see his own journey, his own arc in the story. And that's probably the most fascinating thing about the story, which are the arcs. Orpheus' arc is the main one. You also see Ephesus' arc, which is a very tragic tale, who pretty much fails to accomplish his goal because he ends up getting killed. Yes, I said it. Ephesus gets killed, and the idea of Rome going back to what it was before the fall never happens. However, what does happen is the rise of the Kingdom of Italy under Theodoric. And what happens in that story with how Theodoric takes command actually happened. It is written in a way that it seems that can't happen. No, it actually does. It is very, very fascinating. And I love how in historical fiction you have fictional historical characters interacting with real characters. I always love that because it's almost like a little Easter egg when meeting Odoacer, Justinian, Justin, and their overall roles in the story. It is incredible. Now let's talk about the villains. The villains are very, very fascinating. So the two major villains in this story are Archbishop Martel and Volusian. Now Archbishop Martel is leading an inquisition, as I said earlier, to stamp out any remnants of Roman paganism. And Martel will accomplish his goal by any means, either by torture, execution, or any form of depravity or debauchery he can think of. And his ultimate goal is not only to stamp out Roman paganism, it's to stamp out those who follow the old gods. And that is heavily present throughout the story. In the story, there is a family tree that Martel has been examining for years, killing every member of the family, whether it's followers, aunts, uncles, father, mother, sister, brothers, uncles. He's been killing this large family tree. And Orpheus is the last on that family tree. Well, he thought he was. That leads into the next villain, which is Volusian. Volusian is another son of a demigod. And his father is Mars, the Roman god of war. And it's very interesting, his whole story. As a demigod himself, he was trained by his father to pretty much be like the next generation of gods. But in the story, we learn about this civil war where Volusian pretty much kills everyone of the Roman pantheon. Murders them all. Save for Zeus, who manages to escape and brings his son, Orpheus, to a Roman family who adopts him and raises him as their own. And Volusian's whole goal, in his mentality, he wants to be the new face of the Roman gods. He's working with Martel only enough to suit his own goals. And when he's strong enough, he's going to wipe out Catholicism and the church from existence. He wants to be the new face of the gods. And he wants Orpheus to join him. But Orpheus is not interested in power. He just wants to know where he came from. And for Volusian, he believes that we need to return. We need to come back. We are the strong ones. We can bring back the old gods. But Orpheus is like, we can't. We can't bring back the old gods. We're only reduced to stories, and maybe we're supposed to be like that now. And it's a really interesting dynamic between the two, which I really appreciate. And as I said before, the setting is beautiful. The author really shows the world of Invicta, Fall of Rome. And this is the first of a series, which I was thankful, because I thought the ending in that book, or I should say, in this first book, was, oh my goodness. Although, had the author decided to make this a one-shot, then that could have worked as well. But I'm glad the author is expanding the lore. And honestly, I can't wait for the next book to come. I love historical fiction, especially when it's combined with fantasy. And I also love the fact that the author has written about the Western Roman Empire, which in scholarship, historical scholarship, tends to be overlooked. Not a lot of stories cover it. And we're looking at historical fiction, very few books use that as a setting. The only other book that I have read personally that touches on the fall of the Western Roman Empire is, of course, The Last Legion by my favorite author, Valerio Manfredi. Now, if you enjoy books like The Last Legion by Valerio Manfredi and other Roman books, then you will love Invicta, Fall of Rome. It is a beautiful combination of The Last Legion and, some could argue, the Percy Jackson series of books if you love gods and monsters. Because I guarantee there's probably going to be a lot more characters coming in the next several books. And as a little treat to you guys, from what Chris has told me, the next book that will follow Invicta, and the title is working, is called Byzantium, which you will see the rise of the Byzantines launching their Reconquista to take back the Western Roman Empire, which did happen. The Byzantines wanted to reclaim Rome, and there was a point in time where Byzantium, Rome, was a reality. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this book review / overview of Invicta, Fall of Rome. Again, this is the first time I've ever done this on the channel, and I really like it. And if you want to listen to my interview with Chris Hackett and listen to the first few chapters of Invicta, Fall of Rome, click the link down below. And if you want to watch the interview for yourself, see the timestamp right here. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this book review here on the channel. Be on the lookout for your future episodes coming out next week. The November episode of the Historian's Lounge will be launching November 15th, and that will follow the War of the Triple Alliance, or the Paraguayan War, with historian and teacher Paul Welsh. And I can't wait for you guys to see that episode. It's going to be very, very fascinating and touch on a topic that I do not know, which is why I love the Historian's Lounge series. It helps broaden my knowledge and helps bring to life histories that I'm sure many of you are unfamiliar with. Well, until then, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out.